Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm joined by the one and only Laura Fluke. Hi, Laura.
Good morning, Casey. How are you doing this morning?
Terrific. Nice to have you with us, to have you back, I should say.
Thank you.
Can you give people kind of a refresher, a little bit about what you do, and anything you want the audience to know before we get started? Because I think you got a great topic today.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So I am Laura Fluke. I am the owner and operator of the Quiet Room. And here I do what's called energy balancing or energy regulation. I use modalities like craniosacral therapy and also just some some information from like traditional Chinese medicine and how we implement those philosophies into the work and everything like that to go and help heal a body that may be emotionally dysregulated or spiritually dysregulated, or and that translates to really your nervous system being dysregulated. So, I specialize in helping a person kind of bring their fight or flight system down to a more regulated pattern so that they're not, holding, you know, a bad energy or unhealthy energy in their body that can cause dis-ease or disease. So, and, it's interesting because it kind of leads into, something I did want to share with you
Yeah,
today.
before you get there,
Yeah.
because this I'm enthralled. I gotta know more about this. But before, and I should tell the audience, in case you didn't see the last episode, Laura did some really interesting things as far as energy. Was sending energy to I believe it was a call it to myself. And if you haven't seen that episode, I'd go back in the archive and check it out because that was real interesting. So I just want to let you guys know that. So, Laura, as you were a kid, something happened. I got to know this story because it has to do with energy, right?
Right. So, I think, I would like to kind of take this and break it down just a tiny little bit
Yeah.
so we all understand where energy is. I mean, to go and say the word or the phrase, everything is energy kind of seems really ethereal and way really large, right? We don't
Yeah.
know what to do with that statement. So, you know, as we're growing, we hear certain things from our family, our friends, our parents, that impact us and how we navigate through life. So, words do have containers and are containers, and they have energy behind that, whether we know it or not. So, kind of referring to, an instance that's, more relative to my adult life, as my mother, was nearing the end of her life, she would, look at just life. She wasn't one that worked outside of the home. And, so she was on a limited income, as many seniors are. And, we'd invite her to do something. So I don't know, it's getting really scary. And, you'd know that there was the reference to concerns about her finances, though, that information was private. But I'm thinking, well, I don't sense you have that much concern, but or worry, like you should be okay. And that's not my place to be. But she would say, it's getting scary. It's getting scary. And the way she did this was she was speaking about this fear of not enough, not having enough, not being well supported, that kind of thing. And so, I listened to that in my adult life and just took note of it. And then, my mom had, health concerns. She ate differently than I do, maybe eating the more typical Midwestern diet, like we all eat. We come from an Eastern European background. And so there's chicken and beef and pork and things like that. So she ate a lot of rice, maybe ate potatoes. I mean, these are just parts of our, our food intake for wherever we live in the United States, of course, right? So, then she would notice she'd have discomfort in her hands and inflammation in her hands, or she'd notice inflammation in her hip. Or she'd say, well, my belly's not feeling well because I ate this thing last night that didn't agree with me. And it wasn't like an upset tummy, but you could tell her, she would say, I just don't feel like I'm processing it well or something. My mom's not really educated in any of that stuff very well. So she would say, you just watch, this is going to be you. And I'd like, no, 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 don't. I mean, okay, your concerns about your financial health is one thing, but the fact that you're saying to me, and this is what I'm saying, these are where words come in and connect to our body. And so my body is going, wait, hold on. What's going to be me? Am I going to have to worry about diabetes? Am I going to have to worry about, my digestive health? What am I going to have to do? So, I'm like, oh, Ma, please, don't say that, Ma. I don't want to get sick.
Right, right.
Cue, and fast forward to, 2019, my mother passed away suddenly of a GI hemorrhage. And she would say these things, I'm gonna die in my home. And that was, indicating I don't want to move out of my house. Well, it happened that my mom did pass away in her home of, bleeding out in something that was going on in her intestines and in her belly. And she would often say, my intestine isn't working well. So I'm like, okay. So, fast forward to recently, just life being stressful. And I reached out to a naturopath and I'm saying, okay, I need some help. And she notices, okay, my sugars are elevated more than the more than we should. So I go through this pattern of detoxing my system, using supplements and making sure I'm reducing my sugars, making sure I'm reducing my carbohydrates and, going through that whole process.
Laura, was this like through blood? They do like blood work or something like that? Is that how they do
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So I mean, speaking with this naturopath, we did, blood work that initially found out that my sugar upon waking was higher than they wanted to. So they were like, going, okay, let's go and monitor this. So, and in fact, I even wear a continuous glucose monitor. I'm not diabetic, but I have an ability to go and use my phone to go and assess where my blood sugar is at any time during the day.
Uh-huh.
So I'm watching this and everything like that. I'm going, I just can't seem to get my sugars under control. I can't seem to find the foods that were the combinations. And I'm like, why can't I seem to turn this corner? So here we go. So there's this little bit of backstory that was important to know that, I'm having trouble processing sugar in my system currently. So this is the pancreas that takes care of all of that. So, processes insulin and, more science than I know in this moment, right?
Mm.
Okay. So so here I am working with my colleagues and, I'm having this dialogue with my body. We had recently learned about, a cord cutting ceremony. So, a cord cutting ceremony would be something that is, do we have this something that feels like it's attached to us that is a limiting belief that is holding us back from moving forward. So it becomes metaphorical, right? So we slip into, okay, kind of going from the natural world to kind of going, well, what is our belief about all of this stuff? And I'm sitting here going, well, I don't have a fear of lack. I know that I have that ability to influence it. So I don't have it, but I still have those concerns that my body has heard. So worry, right? So then my mom would say, okay, don't worry, this, or, this is going to be you. And she would never say, don't make different choices, but this is going to be you. So again, there's worry.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of her issues came from her digestive health, which impeded her ability to process sugars for her. So in traditional Chinese medicine, so here's where we bridge the gap from many different types of energy medicine to using another Eastern philosophy. And they say that all of our organs process our emotions. So our heart, that processes and holds joy and depression. Our lungs are sadness and grief. Our kidneys and our adrenals process fear and anxiety. And the liver and the gallbladder process anger and frustration, that type of thing. And the pancreas processes worry. So now my spleen is overworking, or my pancreas is overworking. So, through a process of, sessions where I'm receiving this care, somebody's holding space for me and they say, okay, do you see this cord attached to your body somewhere? And I said, yes. I said, interestingly, it felt like it was connected to the liver. I had anger about certain things. I don't have a gallbladder. So now my gallbladder's not helping my pancreas. So I'm limited physically. So then now there's this cord. And again, this is all metaphorical, right? But I'm
Yeah.
seeing this in my mind's eye because I'm in a safe space to do this, to relax into this a little bit more. And I'm eventually seeing a cord that goes from my head to my heart down through my adrenals and kidneys, which are just below. It went to my liver, which is under my right ribs, went to the kidneys, went to the pancreas, which is immediately under. And then all of these organs were connected. So, I'm going through this process. We say, okay, you can go ahead and cut that off, using, a protocol and a process and a guided meditation, we'll say. I cut that off, you know, work through this ceremony, thanked my body for the healing, handed this cord of worry back to my mother. And she was, we had her, placed in a safe position of light and love, and, allowing her to kind of take this stuff back. And so after this cord cutting, I, metaphorically handed her, the cord back and saying, thank you for, whatever you needed to teach me, but I choose not to believe these things, or, whatever I may have said in that moment. And in that moment, as I'm, kind of holding my hands over where I quote, cut the cord away from my body, not harming my physical body, right?
Right.
I'm sitting in the quiet and just kind of going, okay, how can I have a new belief? How can I remove that limiting impression or that limiting thought? Like, no, this isn't going to happen to me. And the experience was that my mom kind of responded spiritually and through that, that prayer time, that meditation time. And she said, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that my words had such an effect on you. I apologize for speaking that over you. I didn't know the power of my words.
Wow.
So all of that, like there was this, I don't know, I the best I can tell you, there was just this knowing that she was around and sensing her. And there was a sense of going, oh, I didn't realize this. And I will tell you, as sure as you are sitting there and I'm sitting here, I've used this glucose monitor for the past 5 days since we've cut that cord, and my sugars have not elevated or spiked or gotten out of hand or anything. And I have been eating foods that last week, when I ate a sweet potato, my sugar went up.
That is incredible.
This week, I ate the same, like after that session, I ate the same meal and nothing. It babooped just a tiny, because like, okay, you're having food,
Right,
but
right.
not a spike. So
Wow.
this is why I think this is a beautiful example of where we can see where the energy of our words connect to someone's body when we say these things. It was insidious. I had no idea. I mean, intellectually, I could understand how that was, because I told her, don't speak that over me. But I didn't have the understanding of how that could truly affect my physical body in the way that I'm processing food. So then now that we dealt with that, energetically, using safe, connectedness to that, using loving and prayerful intent that, okay, no, I don't want that anymore in my system. And I'm going to metaphorically and figuratively cut that limiting belief from my system and say, that's not mine anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then clearly, as this last, few days of it progressed, I'm a little dumbfounded, to be quite honest with you.
That's incredible.
So yeah, I got nothing after that.
Oh, I got to ask you. I mean, with the limiting belief, it seems like when you gave it away or you gave it back,
Right.
I think you told me that you have to replace it with something. Was
Right.
it the understanding of that you were able to give it back? Tell me what you
Yes.
replaced it with.
Thank you. That was a great question. So, obviously after that, cord cutting, we place our hands at that spot. So you're intending love to kind of go and close that space where things were draining from you. And then as that's kind of happening, and as you can kind of just tell that things are kind of just coming together, and it's feeling like, no, that actually feels a lot better. I'm so glad I did that. It's in that stillness, along with who's holding space with you. It's not that we're doing anything. It's just that space is quiet enough and still enough. And then that message that came through, that new sense of my mom saying or sharing with me or impressing upon me and saying, oh, I'm so sorry I said that to you. So was there a feeling of the replacement of going, wow, I'm sorry. My mom took responsibility for something that she shared. And at the same time, there was this understanding that no, it's not mine. It's okay. So then it just became, wow, I'm really glad and grateful that I had the knowledge to go and, cut this off, and the awareness to cut this off and go, okay, let me do what I can to go and help, heal my body. And, I, certainly had conversations, with my spleen or with my pancreas, excuse me, and saying, wow, hopefully now you know that I really am intentional on trying to go and heal you so that you're not stressed out when you're trying to process sugar, on all the other organs and stuff like that. So then this is where the dialogue parts of what I do also comes in, because our body really does need to be made aware that going, oh my God, you really understood.
Mm,
Like all that time that you didn't have a gallbladder, and I've been having to work hard, and the liver's having to work hard, and we didn't know, and you didn't tell us. And so it sounds all very ethereal, but it is very important for us to acknowledge these things inside of our system to say, wow, pancreas, I had no clue, but I have new information now, and I'm going to do the best that I can to help improve your health so you're not overworking.
mm-hmm,
Is that agreeable to you? And there's almost the sense of the body just going, oh wow, thank you. You finally heard me.
mm-hmm.
I didn't want to have to get you really sick. I didn't want to have to have diabetes or something like that. Hopefully you listened before that big disease or that big diagnosis came.
Mm-hmm.
And I received word from, the naturopath yesterday that my gut health has improved probably 90%,
Wow.
and I still have one more test to go and, come back to find out what my hormones were like. And, initially in February, we saw that there was a potential trajectory toward breast cancer.
Oh.
So, now we're looking at all of this. I'm like, going, no, no, I don't want that either. So what can I do to change my physical body and the way that it's processing food so that I can change that trajectory so that I'm not feeding cancer cells sugar or carbohydrates in such a way that could be damaging or to an unhealthy level. That doesn't mean I can't have sugar.
Yeah,
I just have to do it more intelligently. So,
I see.
yeah,
Now, for something like that, because that's a new situation, like with the um, when they talked about breast cancer,
right.
how do you deal with that? Um, is it just controlling what your the sugars, because you said that feeds
Well,
the
cancer is often fed by sugar, and I don't know a ton of the science behind that, so there's limitations where I don't want to go too far into
I
some of those
understand.
things. But no, sugar is definitely known to, fuel cancer cell production or progression. So, you know, um, the adjustment in food, and I, was given supplements to go and help my gut health also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I said, I've got maybe about a week or so before I get those results, and I'm curious myself to
Yeah,
see,
I'm too.
hopefully
Yeah,
all this work in these last few months has helped change that propensity toward. So
yeah.
yeah, I think the more we know about our body and how the things we eat, the things we say, the things we do, the words we hear, whatever this is, there's a lot of stuff that we get, that puts into our body, and our body responds. And my body responded with joint pain when I had COVID. My body responded with digestive issues when I had COVID. So you could see where there's those little weak points in our systems that when an invader comes in, it attacks those weak points. And so for me it did, so it
Mm-hmm.
just all the more underscored the necessary nature of me to have to change my diet, so that I'll tell you one thing, some of that joint pain that I had was probably the most horrible pain I've ever had. And I don't talk about pain often. I mean, there's
Yeah.
not much that registers on a 10 out of 10 scale, and this was a 13.
Wow.
So, knowing that, okay, what foods do I have to eliminate so that I don't get to that point again?
Yeah.
And knowing that I don't have control. I certainly have influence. And, at first when you have to make those changes, you're like going, well, I can't have this and I can't have this. And of course, that's a normal, natural reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I can't have chicken anymore or eggs anymore. But wait, hold on, I can have these other things. So it's learning how to kind of go, what can I have, to, oh, that really sucks, to, okay, what can I do? And that's where, mindset comes in and how we can work with the body and
Gotcha.
changing that energy.
I wanted to know, did your mom or did you have any correspondence or any thoughts on the gallbladder before it was taken out? How did that happen?
I had had physical symptoms back. This is probably, my gosh, probably 30 or 40 years ago that I'd had this surgery. So, I'd had horrible abdominal pain, and, there wasn't really a lot of education after I'd had it out. There wasn't somebody that said, okay, based on the fact that you don't have this organ that supports your digestion, make sure you eat this way.
Right.
So, that's where a lot of some of, we've gained more knowledge that we should start educating people this way. But,
Well, you,
and like I said, I had no idea how to go and tell my body, oh, I'm so sorry, I removed this organ that you needed. And again, it's unusual for us to hear that information that we really do need to inform our physical body of these things, or at least let it know, going, okay, you're past it or something like that. And that is really what's part of this work, is really getting a person to be connected to their body. If I wasn't connected to my full body presence, I may not notice that, oh, wow, that food, made me feel weird, or this is making me feel funny or something like that.
mhm.
And that's where we really begin to be empowered on how to manage our health. And that translates to our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. And ultimately, of course, as you change how you're feeling, from depressed or overweight, that changes your energy to more of a different vibrancy, right?
Mhm.
So you really do have a lot of influence in how you're feeling, if we can slow down enough to kind of hear the messages that your body's offering.
And that was my next question: is for people out there that moved by this story and wondering what they can do to be in touch more with their body and be able to communicate like you can. How would you say people would start doing that?
Well, I will offer, I will really speak to, one of my mentors, her way of doing life, and her work is healing from the core. So this is Suzanne Skurlock, healingfromthecore.com. So if somebody wanted to kind of start that and begin reading, she has written a book called Reclaiming Your Body, also another book called Full Body Presence. So these are things that you can begin to get the groundwork of where I come from. And as well as, it really, she's done I've mentioned this before, she's done an elegant job of connecting and creating this way of kind of introducing yourself to your body, learning how to listen to your body. And we have no idea how many things we say in just our everyday language, the idioms that we use that speak about how we're hearing our body, but we're not really aware of that. So if I could offer one resource, that would be the first one I would say. If you want to begin to learn your body a little bit more and getting introduced to it, just from like, okay, I'm gonna just put my toe in, Full Body Presence or Reclaiming Your Body by Suzanne Skurlock. Now, if you're kind of like, I want to know more, now this is where I would invite you, hey, please reach out through the, 808, the quiet room 808.com. That's my website. There's a contact form there. My phone number is 586-322-9727. And I'm also on Facebook, the quiet room, also. So there's just lots of ways to connect with a person. And I would love to go and have conversations with folks, and I'm curious to hear what the questions are and how I can help.
Awesome.
So I would really encourage sessions to kind of, or, and just a consult,
Okay.
to answer.
Awesome. Hey, that was a fascinating story. Thank you for sharing it. And let me give you the last. We have 30 seconds left, so let me give you the last time here. You have the floor. Anything you want to leave us with? That was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and so hopefully, if I've done nothing in this last period of time, was I always use the story about a yellow sedan. So if I told you, Casey, I'm looking for a new car, and you go, oh, yeah, what you looking for? And I'm like, oh, I'm getting this yellow sedan. You're going to leave from the studio today. You're going to drive, and you're going to see 100 different yellow sedans, just like the one I'm telling you about, because your awareness is raised. Correct.
Yeah.
So now, what I would invite, those who listen, is to kind of like, pay more attention to the quote yellow sedans in your life that you've noticed from the conversations we've had today. Start noticing, wow, I recall those statements in my life that feel like limiting beliefs or something like that, whatever. Or, oh, wow, something Laura said reminds me of how I notice my body or my mind or my spirit. So it's starting to look, as we begin to have these conversations more and more, listeners have an ability to begin seeing more because they're exposed to a little bit more and kind of start understanding a little bit more. So I would just stay observant, start looking at your world internally and externally. There's so much information there to glean.
Awesome. Great guest, Laura Fluke, everybody. Laura, thank you so much. I can't wait to we speak again.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.